This one I feel is extra interesting. Cortisol is high, it suppresses melatonin. So our immune system is really trying wisely to protect you. We don't need to know the exact names. We just need to understand a little bit what's going on. Those cytokines, the interleukins, they go and they attack our own lungs. So scientists are finding now there are a few things that we can do. I think you get the point of how melatonin can actually buffer us, things that suppress melatonin production, which is not what we want right now. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Whole Wellness Method video. I'm Lida Sportel at the upcoming lidashealing.com and founder of the Whole Wellness Method. And in this video, we are continuing our discussion on getting through the coronavirus crisis with you. And in particular, I want to talk about an interesting topic today. I mean, I think they're all interesting, but this one I feel is extra interesting. And that is, I want to talk about melatonin. And I want to talk about a very interesting way that melatonin can help us right now. And you might know, I know probably a lot of you already know that melatonin is the sleep hormone. It helps us sleep at night, and some people take it as a supplement to help them sleep at night. So while this is a great discussion to be having if you are struggling with sleep right now, and I know a lot of my clients are having a lot of sleep issues, especially at this time that we're dealing with this crisis. Their stress hormones are heightened, which is the cortisol. The cortisol is a stress hormone, and it has an inverse relationship with melatonin. So the higher our stress hormones are, which is cortisol, the lower melatonin is going to be, which means that the more stressed out I am, the less I'm going to be able to sleep. That's simple. And you probably already know that and you experience that. If you are feeling fear, anxiety, racing thoughts, everything that we're all kind of experiencing right now, it's going to affect your sleep because the stress levels are higher. And when cortisol is high, it suppresses melatonin. So I'm not going to go into that discussion though. What I want to talk about is, yes, melatonin, supplementing with melatonin right now can help if, as a supplement if you are struggling with sleep. Now, with my clients, I usually test their melatonin levels. We use a fantastic hormone test called the Dutch test, and we use that test to see if their cortisol is actually high at night and their melatonin low at night, which is the reason why they can't sleep. So then we suggest some supplementation with melatonin. Other clients of mine don't want to test about this. They just want to try and take melatonin and see if that works for them. And then they're like, okay, well, it works. I don't need to know if I have low or high levels. I know it works. That's all I needed to know. So that's that discussion, which is in the discussions I'm having about supplements for sleep or little tips for sleep. That's also part of that conversation, which is tips for sleep. But what I want to discuss here in this video is a different use of melatonin that we haven't quite explored before. And this research just came out like a few days ago. So I want to bring that to you right away. And that is how melatonin can help specifically with what the coronavirus is doing to our bodies. So I've spoken to that before, which is that this particular virus, not the flu virus, not the common cold virus, not other viruses, this particular virus, what it does is it goes into our lungs, it infects our lungs, and then our own immune system, elicits a inflammatory response that is way more than what it needs to be, if you will. Not that our immune system isn't wise, it is wise, but because of this virus and the way this virus is functioning, our immune system doesn't know what to do with viruses like that. It has not been exposed to anything like that before. So our immune system is really trying wisely to protect you. And for most of us, it does protect us. But there is a certain percentage of the population that this inflammatory response that our own immune system is eliciting against this virus in the lungs is the reason why these people die. Because that inflammatory response becomes so intense that fluid accumulates in the lungs and then they cannot breathe, and that's how they die. Now, what researchers and scientists are finding is that there is this, it's called inflammasome, and what that is a group of proteins that gets activated, that's part of our immune system, that gets activated when we're infected with the COVID-19, okay, the specific virus. So when that group of proteins gets activated, it starts producing these cytokines, the cytokine storm, right? So it's those interleukins. There's those cytokines. We don't need to know the exact names. We just need to understand a little bit what's going on and why all this is going to make sense when I start talking about melatonin. So those cytokines, the interleukins, they go and they attack our own lungs, and then we get all the complications from that. So the way we need to understand this is, how do we suppress that inflammasome, those group of proteins that get activated when we're infected with the COVID-19? How do we inhibit that expression of that inflammasome, those cytokines? How do we lessen that? So scientists are finding now there are a few things that we can do to suppress how much that inflammatory response becomes. And so one of the mechanisms to suppress that inflammasome is by using melatonin. Who would have thought of that, right? Another one is vitamin C. And I have a whole separate video on vitamin C because it's good on so many different levels right now and for this particular virus. But for this video, I want to focus on melatonin. So melatonin and vitamin C have been shown to inhibit the expression of the inflammasome, specifically the NLRP-3 inflammasome. Not that you cared about the number, but the name, but that's what they've shown in their studies on this, that melatonin and vitamin C suppress that inflammasome. And that inflammasome is directly linked to the acute respiratory distress syndrome that you've been hearing about, the acute lung injury, which is what is lethal. So what is very interesting to also see, and these wonderful scientists have done their job to look at the data, is that the reason why kids under the age of 9 don't seem to be having that intense symptoms, or sometimes they don't even have any symptoms with this particular virus, is because they actually have 10 times more melatonin than older adults. And older adults have a lot less melatonin than other age groups. So very interesting. Pregnant women who also seem to be doing well with this virus, meaning they don't get impacted by it as much as non-pregnant women, for example. Interestingly, in their first trimester, they have double the amount of melatonin than a non-pregnant woman of the same age. And in their third trimester, they have double the amount of melatonin of the first trimester. So very interesting data to look at. And I could obviously keep going on and on this, giving you examples like that, but I think you get the point of how melatonin can actually buffer us against having a really strong inflammatory response, possibly lethal, against this coronavirus. So, and also interesting is to look at the winter flu, the flu that we all know. That doesn't seem to have much to do with melatonin, and interestingly, the winter flu affects all age groups in a rather equal way. I mean, older adults are more prone to having significant effects from it, but that's for other reasons. The melatonin correlation is very specific to this coronavirus. So interesting stuff. Now, you might wonder, what do I do with this information, right? So one route is to actually test and see what your melatonin levels are. Another route is to actually just supplement with melatonin. And for dosages and stuff like that, I would have to, be more specific. If it was a one-on-one session that I had, I can't give out dosages for everybody. Although there are, if you look at the supplements that I will recommend below here, one of the supplements is SRT, meaning it has sustained release timing throughout the night if you use it for sleep. And the other one is just a melatonin that you can take anytime. And they do have some specific dosing recommendations that you can follow. But what is important to know is it's one tool. It's one more tool. Am I saying it's the cure? No. And I cannot say that for anything that I say to you. But it's been shown to really reduce that and actually inhibit that inflammasome, that cytokine storm. Very, very important, especially if you have already been tested positive, or if you know of others that have tested positive. I just feel like at that point, it's even more important to be having this discussion. So some of the things that they're saying: melatonin counteracts severe inflammatory responses, lowers production of pro-inflammatory cytokines, lowers infiltration of immune cells into the lungs, reduces lung tissue injury. So pretty incredible. And so I will do another video on discussing on the things that suppress melatonin, because you might have enough melatonin production from the pineal gland. The pineal gland produces melatonin based on the circadian rhythm throughout the day. Our body knows when to produce melatonin, but there are certain things that we might be doing unknowingly that are sabotaging our ability to produce enough melatonin. So I will follow up with a separate video on things that suppress melatonin production, which is not what we want right now. So I hope you found this helpful, and if you feel there's somebody that can use this and this information can be helpful to them, feel free to share this. Until next time, leaving you in whole wellness. Bye-bye.